The desert wind carried the taste of copper and cordite. Fallujah, Iraq, Sector 7, 0347 hours, 3 years ago. Lieutenant Garrett Sloan pressed his back against the crumbling wall of what used to be a schoolhouse. His rifle, an M4A1 with a thermal scope, swept the darkness ahead. Behind him, 10 men moved in perfect silence. Navy SEALs, the best operators America had ever produced. They didn't know they had 40 seconds left to live. The patrol route had been approved 3 days prior. Standard reconnaissance, map the insurgent safe houses, gather intelligence, get out before dawn. Clean, simple, routine. Except someone had sold the route for $50,000. Garrett keyed his radio, his voice barely a whisper. Overwatch, this is Alpha 1. Approaching checkpoint Bravo. No contact. How copy? Static crackled in his ear. Then a voice. Calm. Professional. The voice of someone who'd been doing this for 30 years. Alpha 1. Overwatch. Copy all.
Thermals show clear for 200 meters. You're good to proceed. Garrett signaled his team. They moved like shadows. 11 men who trusted each other with their lives, who'd trained together, bled together, would die together, though they didn't know that yet. Back at the forward operating base, 12 miles away, Sergeant Kira Ashford sat in the medical tent with an ice pack pressed against her swollen ankle. 19 years old, the youngest qualified SEAL in the program. Red hair pulled back in a tight bun, green eyes that burned with frustration. She should have been with them, would have been with them. But she'd rolled her ankle during a training run 2 days ago. The medic had grounded her. 24 hours, mandatory rest. She'd argued, begged, even tried to hide the limp. Garrett had pulled her aside that afternoon, put his hand on her shoulder, looked at her with those steady brown eyes that made her feel like everything would be okay.
"Stay back, Ash," he'd said. "That's an order."
"I can still shoot," she'd protested. "I know you can, but you can't run. And if things go bad, I need operators who can move fast." He'd smiled then, that crooked smile that made her chest tight. "Besides, someone needs to keep the coffee warm. We'll be back by sunrise." He'd kissed her forehead, turned, walked away. She never saw him alive again. In Sector 7, Garrett reached the intersection. His point man, Chief Petty Officer Nathan Cross, raised a fist. "Stop." Everyone froze. Cross scanned the rooftops with his night vision. Nothing. Scanned the windows. Nothing. Scanned the alleyways. Still nothing. He lowered his fist, pointed forward. "Move." They crossed the intersection. The sniper fired from 400 meters away. Russian-made Dragunov SVD 7.62 millimeter round, moving at 2,700 feet per second. Cross's head snapped back. He was dead before his body hit the ground. Then the world exploded.
IEDs buried in the street. Daisy-chained together. 6 explosions in rapid succession. The sound like God tearing the earth in half. Garrett felt the shockwave lift him off his feet. Felt the heat scorch his face. Felt the debris slam into his body armor like baseball bats swung by giants. He hit the ground hard, ears ringing, vision blurred, tasted blood in his mouth. Around him, his team was being slaughtered. Gunfire from 3 directions, AK-47s, PKM machine guns, RPGs. The insurgents had been waiting, knew exactly where they'd be, knew exactly when. This wasn't an ambush. This was an execution. Garrett tried to stand. His leg wouldn't respond. Looked down,
saw bone, saw blood. Too much blood. He keyed his radio, voice weak, fading. Overwatch, Alpha 1, we're hit. The transmission cut off. At the FOB, Kira was staring at the radio when the distress signal came through. Not from Garrett's team, from the Quick Reaction Force scrambling to respond. Multiple casualties. Say again, multiple KIA. Requesting immediate medevac. Sector 7 is hot. Repeat, Sector 7 is hot. The ice pack slipped from Kira's hand, hit the floor. Water spread across the concrete like blood. She ran, ankles screaming, medics shouting after her. Didn't matter. Nothing mattered except getting to that radio. Getting to someone who could tell her what was happening. Getting to Garrett. She burst into the command center. Officers hunched over screens, maps covered with red markers. Someone was shouting coordinates. Someone else was on the phone with air support. A colonel she didn't recognize turned, saw her. His face said everything. Sergeant Ashford, you need to... Where's Garrett? The colonel's jaw tightened. Sergeant, where is he? The room went quiet. The colonel looked at her with eyes that had seen this too many times, had delivered this news too many times, would never get used to it. I'm sorry, Sergeant. Lieutenant Sloan, he didn't make it. None of them did. The words didn't make sense. Couldn't make sense. Because Garrett was invincible. Garrett was the best operator she'd ever seen. Garrett had promised her they'd be back by sunrise. No. Her voice small, distant, like it belonged to someone else. No, you're wrong. He's just injured. 9 confirmed KIA. 2 critical. They're bringing them in now. 9 out of 11. Garrett and 8 others. Gone. Just like that. The 2 survivors died in surgery 3 hours later. Kira stood in the rain outside the medical tent and screamed until her voice gave out. She was 19 years old, and she just lost the only man she'd ever loved. Camp Morrison, California, present day, 3 years later. The desert had a different smell in California, less cordite, more sage, but the heat was the same. The way it pressed against your skin like a living thing. The way it made everything shimmer and dance. Kira Ashford walked across the training yard at 2200 hours. 20 years old now, still 5'2", still 112 pounds, still looking like someone who'd wandered into the wrong place. That was the point. She wore standard olive drab utilities, hair pulled back in the same tight bun she'd worn in Iraq. No makeup, no jewelry, nothing that drew attention. The base was quiet. Most personnel had hit the racks an hour ago. Only the diehards were still up, the ones running extra miles, doing extra reps, trying to prove something to someone who'd never notice. Kira had been one of those once. Before Fallujah taught her that effort didn't matter, skill didn't matter, being the best didn't matter. All that mattered was whether someone betrayed you before you could make a difference. She was halfway across the yard when she heard the footsteps behind her. 3 sets, heavy, male, deliberately loud. Wanted her to know they were coming. She kept walking. Didn't change her pace. Didn't look back. Just counted. 1, 2, 3. 3 targets. 6 seconds. No witnesses needed. The voice came from behind her. Deep. Mocking. The voice of a man who'd spent his entire life being bigger than everyone else. Hey, new girl. Kira stopped, turned slowly. 3 men stood in the amber glow of the sodium lights. The center one was massive, 6'4", 240 pounds of muscle stacked on top of more muscle, arms like tree trunks, neck so thick it looked painful. His name tape read Vale, Staff Sergeant Dominic Vale, infantry, 8 years in, 4 deployments, known for 2 things, being strong and being cruel. To his left stood Sergeant Liam Crow, shorter, stockier, mean eyes that never stopped calculating. To his right, Corporal Jake Torres, younger, eager, the kind of follower who'd do anything to stay in his leader's good graces. Kira looked at them with the expression she'd practiced in the mirror, wide-eyed, uncertain, a little scared. "Can I help you, Staff Sergeant?" Vale smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. "You can start by telling me what the hell you're doing walking around my base at night." "Your base?" "That's right." He stepped closer. "I run the training yard. I run the gyms. I run every square inch of dirt between here and the motor pool. And I sure as hell run the newbies who think they belong here." Kira kept her voice small, meek. "I'm just heading back to my barracks, Staff Sergeant. I was working late in the—" "I don't care what you were doing." Vale was close now. Too close. Invading her space in a way that said he'd done this before. To other women. Women who couldn't fight back. "What I care about is that you're walking around like you own the place. Like you're special." "I'm not special, Staff Sergeant." "No, you're not." He looked her up and down, slow, deliberate, making her feel every inch of his attention. "You're tiny, you're weak, and you're in way over your head." Crow laughed. Torres joined in a beat later. "Trying too hard." Kira said nothing. Vale's smile widened. "Cat got your tongue, new girl? Or are you just trying to figure out whether to cry now or wait until you're alone?" In her mind, Kira was counting. Vale's stance, aggressive but unbalanced. Weight forward on his toes, easy to topple. Crow's hand, hovering near his belt, probably carrying, but drunk on Vale's approval. Reaction time would be slow. Torres, watching Vale instead of her. Amateur mistake. 6 seconds, maybe less. But not yet. She needed them comfortable, needed them cocky, needed them to think she was exactly what they saw, a scared little girl who'd stumbled into a world she didn't understand. "I'm sorry, Staff Sergeant," she said, letting her voice crack just a little. "I didn't mean to—" "Shut up!" The words cracked like a whip. Vale's hand shot out, grabbed her shoulder, squeezed hard enough to leave bruises. "Here's how this works, new girl. You keep your head down. You don't ask questions. You don't look at things that aren't your business. And when someone with rank tells you to do something, you do it. No hesitation, no complaints. Understood?" Kira met his eyes, saw the cruelty there, the pleasure he took in making people afraid, saw Garrett's face, saw Cross's head snapping back, saw 9 names carved into stone. "Yes, Staff Sergeant, I understand." Vale studied her for another moment, then shoved her backward. Not hard enough to make her fall, but hard enough to remind her who had the power. "Good. Now get the hell out of my sight before I decide you need a more hands-on lesson." Kira turned, walked away, shoulders hunched, head down, every inch the frightened victim. Behind her, Vale's laughter echoed across the empty yard. "Pathetic little bitch," he said to his crew. "Give her a week. She'll quit. They always do." Kira kept walking, didn't look back, didn't need to. She'd seen enough. And in 72 hours, Dominic Vale was going to learn what happened when you underestimated someone who'd been counting the whole time. INSYS Headquarters, San Diego, 0800 hours.
Commander Sarah Blake looked like someone who'd spent 20 years dealing with the worst humanity had to offer and somehow kept believing there were still good people in the world. 45 years old, sharp features, gray threading through her dark hair, eyes that missed nothing. She stood at the head of the briefing room, arms crossed, watching Kira Ashford read the file. The file was thin, too thin. 3 pages for 11 dead Navy SEALs. Kira's hands didn't shake as she turned the pages, didn't shake as she read the names. Names she'd memorized. Names that followed her into sleep every night. Lieutenant Garrett Sloan, Chief Petty Officer Nathan Cross, Petty Officer First Class Isaiah Grant, Petty Officer Second Class. She stopped reading. Blake's voice cut through the silence.
The official report says equipment failure. Bad intel. Wrong place, wrong time. She paused. The official report is a lie. Kira looked up. Blake leaned forward, planted her hands on the table. Someone sold that patrol route, Sergeant. Someone with access to classified information. Someone inside our own system. You're sure? The insurgents knew exactly where your team would be, exactly when. They had IEDs placed, snipers positioned, escape routes planned. Blake's voice hardened. That's not luck, that's betrayal. Kira's jaw tightened. Who? That's what you're going to find out. Blake slid another file across the table, thicker this time. Camp Morrison, California. 4 women in the past year have filed harassment complaints. All 4 complaints disappeared. All 4 women transferred or discharged within 72 hours. Someone's covering up. Someone high-ranking. Someone with enough authority to bury complaints and move people off base before they can talk. Kira opened the file, read the names. Private First Class Rebecca Lane, transferred corporal. Samantha Brooks, discharged. Lance Corporal Jennifer Hayes, transferred. Sergeant Jessica Martinez, missing. Missing? Her file was scrubbed clean. Room cleared out. Personal effects returned to family. It's like she never existed. Blake's eyes locked onto Kira's. But 6 months before she disappeared, Martinez submitted a formal request to investigate irregularities in communication protocols, specifically encrypted transmissions that had no official record. Intel leaks. That's our theory. Martinez was getting close. Someone made sure she couldn't finish. The room was quiet except for the hum of the air conditioning. Kira closed the file, looked at Blake. What's my cover? Administrative assistant, fresh transfer from Virginia. Young, inexperienced, forgettable. Forgettable. Kira almost smiled. I can do forgettable. You'll report directly to me. Daily check-ins via encrypted channel. If you find evidence linking Morrison to the Fallujah leak, you call it in immediately. No heroics, no solo operations. Blake's voice softened just slightly. I know this is personal, Sergeant, but I need you focused. I need you professional. I'm always professional, ma'am. Are you? Blake studied her. Because the woman I'm looking at right now has spent 3 years wanting revenge. And revenge makes people sloppy. Kira stood, straight-backed, eyes forward, every inch the Navy SEAL she'd earned the right to be. Revenge is emotional, Commander. What I want is justice. There's a difference. Blake considered this, then nodded slowly. There's one more thing. She pulled out a photograph, slid it across the table. You'll be working with an advisor, someone who knows the players at Morrison.
Someone who has experience with this kind of investigation.
Kira picked up the photo. The man in the picture was in his early 60s, silver hair, cropped military short, weathered face with lines that spoke of too many deployments in too many deserts. A scar ran from his left temple down to his jaw, but it was his eyes that caught her attention. Gray, hard, the eyes of someone who'd seen hell and walked out the other side. His uniform bore the eagles of a full colonel. His name tape read, Garrison. Kira's breath caught. Colonel Wade Garrison? You know him? Every SEAL knows him, ma'am. He's a legend. Team 3, Gulf War, Somalia, Afghanistan. They say he's the reason half the tactics in the SEAL handbook even exist. They say correctly. Blake leaned back. Garrison retired 2 years ago. Took a consulting position with NCIS. He specializes in internal investigations, corruption, leaks, the kind of cases where the enemy wears the same uniform you do. Kira stared at the photograph. Wade Garrison, Ironhide. The man who'd trained an entire generation of SEALs. The man who'd written the book on unconventional warfare. The man who'd turned down a promotion to admiral 3 times because he wanted to stay in the field. And the man who'd trained Garrett Sloan. He requested you specifically, Blake said. When I told him about the investigation, he said there was only one operator he'd trust with this, someone young enough to go undercover, someone smart enough not to get caught, someone who understood what was at stake. He knows about Fallujah? He knows about all of it. Blake's voice gentled. Garrett was one of his best students, Kira. Garrison took his death hard. Very hard. Kira set the photo down. Her hands were steady. When do I meet him? 30 minutes. Conference room B. He's reviewing the case files now. Kira nodded, turned toward the door. Blake called after her. Sergeant? She stopped, looked back.
Garrison's a good man, one of the best, but he's also old school. He doesn't sugarcoat. He doesn't coddle. If you screw up, he'll tell you. If you're out of line, he'll rein you in. Blake paused. And if he tells you to abort, you abort. Clear? Crystal, ma'am. Good, because I'm putting my career on the line for this operation, and I need to know you can follow orders, even when your gut tells you to do something else. Kira met her eyes, thought about Garrett, about 9 names carved in stone, about 3 years of nightmares and survivor's guilt and rage that never quite burned out. I can follow orders, Commander. Can you? Or are you just telling me what I want to hear? The question hung in the air. Kira took a breath, let it out slow. 3 years ago, I watched my entire team die because someone betrayed them, because someone decided their lives were worth less than $50,000. Her voice didn't waver. I could have gone rogue, could have started hunting on my own, could have torn apart the system until I found who was responsible. But you didn't. No, ma'am. I joined NCIS. I filed the reports. I went through the proper channels. Because Garrett taught me that the difference between a soldier and a vigilante is accountability. She straightened her shoulders. So yes, Commander, I can follow orders, even when it hurts. Blake studied her for another moment, then nodded. Conference room B. Don't keep him waiting. Garrison hates tardiness. Kira saluted. Blake returned it. And as Kira walked out of the briefing room, she felt something she hadn't felt in 3 years. Purpose. Conference room B, 0830. Hours. Colonel Wade Garrison looked up when she entered. He was older than the photograph suggested. 61, according to the file, but he carried it well. Shoulders still broad, posture still straight. Hands steady as they turned the pages of the case file spread across the conference table. The scar on his face was more prominent in person. Started at his left temple, cut down through his eyebrow, ended at his jaw. Combat wound, Kira guessed. Iraq or Afghanistan.
The kind of wound that should have killed him. He was wearing civilian clothes, jeans, black button-down shirt, but he moved like military. Every gesture precise, every movement efficient. He looked at her for exactly 3 seconds, taking her measure, cataloging everything. Then he spoke. His voice was exactly what she'd expected. Gravel, wrapped in authority. "You're shorter than I thought." Kira closed the door behind her. "I get that a lot, sir. I trained men who were 6'2" and couldn't make it through BUD/S. Skill beats strength every time." He gestured to a chair. "Sit." She sat. Garrison turned a page, kept reading, didn't look at her. "Says here you completed SEAL qualification at 19. Youngest woman ever." He glanced up.
Also says you spent 6 months in combat rotations before Fallujah. 4 confirmed kills. 2 high-value target captures. Commendation for valor.
Yes, sir. Says you were supposed to be on the patrol that got hit. Kira's jaw tightened. Yes, sir. Sprained ankle. Medic grounded you. Garrison's gray eyes pinned her. How'd that happen? Training run 2 days prior. Rolled it on uneven ground. Uh-huh. He closed the file, leaned back in his chair. You know what I think, Sergeant? No, sir. I think you got lucky. I think you were supposed to die with the rest of your team. And I think you've spent 3 years trying to figure out whether you should feel grateful or guilty. The words hit like physical blows. Kira kept her face neutral. Permission to speak freely, sir? Granted. I feel both. Garrison nodded slowly. Good. That means you're human. The day you stop feeling guilty is the day you stop giving a damn about the people you lost. He stood, walked to the window, stared out at the parking lot. I trained Garrett Sloan, you know. Commander Blake mentioned it, sir. He was 18 when he came to me. Fresh-faced kid from Montana. Thought he was hot shit because he could run fast and shoot straight. Garrison's voice softened, just barely. Took me 6 months to break him down. Another 6 to build him back up into something useful. By the time I was done, he was one of the best operators I'd ever trained. He turned, looked at Kira. He talked about you, a lot. Said he'd met this girl, this tiny, red-haired girl, who could outshoot half the instructors at the range. Said you were stubborn as hell and twice as mean when someone told you no. Despite everything, Kira felt her throat tighten. He used to say you reminded him of a pit bull. Small, determined, jaws that wouldn't let go once you latched on. Garrison's expression didn't change. He also said you were going to change the SEALs, make them better.
Prove that skill mattered more than size.
He believed that, sir. So do I. Garrison walked back to the table, put both hands flat on the surface, leaned forward. Which is why I requested you for this operation. Not because you're the best, not because you're young enough to go undercover, but because I know you won't quit, won't back down, won't let the bastards who killed Garrett walk free. Kira met his eyes. No, sir, I won't. Good. He straightened, crossed his arms. Then let's get something clear right now. I'm your advisor, your handler, your eye in the sky, but I'm not your partner. I'm too old for field work, too slow, too goddamn tired. Sir, you're one of the most... I'm 61 years old, Sergeant. I've had 3 surgeries on my left knee, 2 on my right shoulder.
I've got tinnitus in both ears from too many flashbangs, and my back goes out if I sleep on the wrong mattress. He pointed at her. You're the blade. I'm the whetstone. You do the cutting.
I make sure you stay sharp. Understood?
Yes, sir. Completely understood. Garrison studied her, then nodded once. Good. Now open that box. He pulled out a small box from his jacket, set it on the table. Kira opened it. Inside was a communications device, smaller than a dime, flesh-colored, designed to fit in the ear canal. Encrypted comms, Garrison said. Range of 5 miles. Battery life of 72 hours. You'll wear it 24/7. I'll be monitoring from a surveillance van outside Morrison's perimeter. You'll be watching the whole time? Every move, every conversation, every time you take a piss, I'll know about it. His voice hardened. Because if you get in trouble, I need to know immediately, not 5 minutes later, not after you've already tried to fight your way out. The second things go sideways, you call for extraction. Clear? Crystal, sir. We'll see. He picked up another file. This one had a red classification stamp.
Staff Sergeant Dominic Vale, Infantry. Known associate of Colonel Gregory Thorne. 4 women have filed complaints against him in the past 2 years. All complaints disappeared. Vale's still walking around like he owns the place. Kira's jaw tightened. I've met him. Garrison looked up, sharp. When? Last night, 2,200 hours. He approached me in the training yard, him and 2 others. They wanted to make sure I understood the pecking order. Did they touch you? He grabbed my shoulder, squeezed hard enough to bruise. Garrison's expression didn't change, but something cold flickered in his gray eyes. And you didn't break his arm because I'm supposed to be a scared admin assistant, sir, not a SEAL. Smart, he nodded. But if he touches you again, you have my permission to remind him that skill beats strength. Discreetly. Yes, sir. Garrison closed the file, studied her carefully. You know this isn't going to be quick, right? Could take weeks, maybe months. You're going to have to watch men like Vale walk around thinking they're invincible. Watch them intimidate other women. Watch them get away with it. And you can't do anything until we have solid evidence. I understand, sir. Do you? Because the Kira Ashford I've read about doesn't strike me as someone with a lot of patience. Garrett taught me patience, sir. Garrett taught you a lot of things, but he's not here anymore. Garrison's voice softened, just barely. And I need to know you're not going to go off half-cocked the first time Vale pisses you off. Kira held his gaze. Colonel Garrison, 3 years ago I lost everyone I cared about. I've spent every day since then learning to control the anger, channel it, use it. She leaned forward. I'm not going to blow this mission because I can't keep my temper in check. I'm going to succeed because I owe it to the 11 men who died in Fallujah. Garrison stared at her. Then, for the first time, he almost smiled. You really do remind me of a pit bull. He picked up the communications device, held it out. You ship to Morrison tomorrow at 0600. Vale and his crew will test you, push you, try to break you. Let them think they're succeeding. Kira took the device. And if they push too hard, then you push back, but smart, calculated. Make them think it was their idea to back off. Garrison walked to the door, stopped, looked back. One more thing, Sergeant. Sir? Garrett was right about you. You are going to change the SEALs. But not because you're good at shooting, because you're good at surviving. His gray eyes held hers. So survive this.
Find the bastards who killed your team. And when you do, I'll make sure they never hurt anyone again. Promise, sir? I've been doing this for 40 years, Kira. I know how to make people disappear. He opened the door. Now get some rest. Tomorrow, you become someone else.
And that someone needs to be convincing enough to fool a man who's been getting away with evil for years.
He left. Kira sat alone in the conference room, stared at the communication device in her palm. Small, almost insignificant, but it meant she wouldn't be alone, wouldn't be working in the dark, would have someone watching her back, someone who'd trained Garrett, someone who understood what was at stake. She closed her fingers around the device. "I'll find them," she whispered to the empty room. "I promise, Garrett. I'll find them all." Outside, the California sun burned bright and merciless. And 300 miles north, at Camp Morrison, Staff Sergeant Dominic Vale was laughing with his crew about the scared little girl they'd met the night before. He didn't know it yet, but in 72 hours, his world was going to end. Camp Morrison disappeared in Kira's rearview mirror as she drove north on Highway 101. 3 days undercover. 3 days of being small and scared and forgettable. 3 days of watching Dominic Vale strut around like he owned the world. It had been enough. The NCIS raid came at dawn. 30 agents in tactical gear, helicopters overhead. Enough firepower to invade a small country. Colonel Gregory Thorne was pulled from his quarters in handcuffs. Dominic Vale and his crew were face down in the dirt before they knew what hit them. The recording Kira had made, Vale's threats, his admissions, his casual cruelty, played on loop in the interrogation room. By noon, Thorne had given up his entire operation. Names, dates, bank account numbers. But there was a problem. Thorne wasn't the top of the food chain. He'd been taking orders from someone else. Someone who'd provided the intel that got 11 SEALs killed in Fallujah. Someone who was still out there. Which was why Kira was now driving to Camp Pendleton with a new mission and a fresh cover identity. Her phone buzzed. Garrison's voice crackled through the speaker. "You still awake, Ashford?" "Yes, sir." "Good, because we need to talk about Pendleton before you get there." Kira glanced at the dashboard clock. 0347 hours. She'd been driving for 6 hours straight, running on coffee and purpose. "I'm listening, sir." 3 women dead in 18 months. Corporal Julie Brennan, Specialist Amy Sinclair, Sergeant Rachel Donnelly. All of them filed harassment complaints. All of them died within weeks. Suicide? That's what the reports say. Brennan hung herself in her barracks. Sinclair drowned during a training exercise. Donnelly overdosed on sleeping pills. Kira's hands tightened on the wheel. "But you don't believe it." "I believe someone wanted them silenced. Same pattern as Morrison. File a complaint. Die mysteriously. Investigation gets buried." Garrison paused. "But Pendleton's different. The officer in charge is Colonel Patricia Vaughn. She's got 28 years in. Spotless record. Congressional commendations. She's a goddamn hero." "You think she's involved?" "I think heroes are the best kind of cover. Nobody questions them. Nobody digs too deep. And when bodies start piling up under their watch, everyone assumes it's coincidence." The highway stretched ahead, empty, dark. The kind of road where you could drive forever and never reach anywhere that mattered. "What's my cover?" Kira asked. "Training specialist. Brought in to evaluate hand-to-hand combat protocols. Gives you legitimate access to personnel files, training schedules, everything we need." "And you?"
I'll be in a surveillance van 2 miles outside the wire. Same setup as Morrison. Encrypted comms, real-time monitoring. Garrison's voice roughened. But Kira, this one's going to be harder. Vaughn's smart. Careful. She's been running this operation for years without getting caught. So we be smarter. That's the plan. Problem is, we don't know who else is dirty.
Could be one person, could be a dozen. You step wrong, you're dead before I can get you out. Kira watched the broken white line blur past. Thought about Garrett. About 9 names carved in stone. About 3 women who'd tried to do the right thing and paid with their lives. I'm not afraid of the work, sir. I know. That's what keeps me up at night. Garrison sighed. Get some rest, Sergeant. You hit Pendleton in 4 hours. Need you sharp. The line went dead. Kira drove in silence. The sun climbed over distant peaks, washing the highway in amber light. She pressed harder on the accelerator, racing toward answers, running from ghosts. 3 hours later, she crossed into Camp Pendleton's jurisdiction, and everything changed. The base was massive, 3 times the size of Morrison. 40,000 acres of training ranges and barracks and offices that sprawled across the California coastline like a military city.
Finding 3 dead women's secrets in this place would be like finding bullets in a desert. But Kira had always been good at impossible tasks. She checked in at the main gate. The MP barely glanced at her ID, waved her through with the bored efficiency of someone who'd processed 10,000 faces and remembered none of them. Perfect. Her quarters were in Building 9, 2nd floor, single room with a window that overlooked the main training yard. She unpacked methodically. Civilian clothes in the dresser, tactical gear hidden in false-bottom duffel. The communications device from Garrison fitted snugly in her left ear. Radio check, she said quietly. Garrison's voice came through crystal clear. Lima Charlie, how's the room? Small, clean, good sight lines to the yard. That's tactical thinking. Most people would say it's got a nice view. A pause. You ready for this? Kira looked out the window, watched Marines running formation drills. Young, fit,
Confident in their immortality. The way Garrett's team had been confident. Yes, sir, I'm ready. Good, because you've got a meet and greet with Vaughn in 30 minutes. Play it straight, respectful. Don't give her any reason to look twice at you. Understood. She changed into fresh utilities, pulled her hair back, checked her reflection in the mirror. The woman staring back looked young, uncertain, nothing like a Navy SEAL who'd killed 4 men in combat. Good. She headed to the administration building. Colonel Patricia Vaughn's office was on the 3rd floor, corner suite with windows that faced the Pacific. Kira could see the ocean from here, gray and endless and cold. Vaughn was behind her desk when Kira entered, 52 years old, according to the file. But she looked younger. Sharp features, steel gray hair cropped military short, eyes that evaluated everything. She stood, extended a hand. Her grip was firm, professional. Specialist Ashford, welcome to Pendleton. Thank you, ma'am. I've reviewed your file. Impressive credentials for someone your age. Krav Maga instructor certification, combat experience in Iraq, commendations from 3 different commanding officers. Vaughn gestured to a chair. Though I'll admit, I'm surprised NCIS sent someone so young for this evaluation. Kira sat, kept her posture relaxed, non-threatening. They wanted a fresh perspective, ma'am. Someone who's trained in modern hand-to-hand protocols. Modern? Vaughn smiled. It didn't reach her eyes. Is that code for saying our current training is outdated?
Not at all, ma'am. Just that combat doctrine evolves. What worked 10 years ago might not be optimal today. Diplomatic answer. Vaughn sat back, studied Kira with the intensity of a sniper lining up a shot. Tell me, Specialist, what do you know about Camp Pendleton? Largest Marine Corps base on the West Coast, primary amphibious training facility, home to the 1st Marine Division. Kira paused. Also the location of 3 tragic deaths in the past 18 months. The room temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. Vaughn's expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes, something cold and dangerous. Tragic, that's one word for it. I apologize if that was insensitive, ma'am. The investigations concluded those deaths were either accidents or suicides. The families have been notified. The cases are closed. Vaughn leaned forward. So tell me, Specialist, why would NCIS send a training evaluator who seems more interested in closed cases than combat protocols? In her ear, Garrison's voice. Careful, Kira. She's testing you. Kira met Vaughn's gaze, steady, calm. I'm not interested in reopening investigations, ma'am. I'm interested in making sure no more women die. If there are systemic issues in our training that contributed to those tragedies, it's my job to identify them. Silence. Vaughn studied her for another 5 seconds, then nodded slowly.
Fair enough. You'll have access to all training facilities. Personnel files are available through admin. If you need anything else, my door is open. She stood. The meeting was over. One piece of advice, Specialist. Ma'am? Camp Pendleton is a tight-knit community. We take care of our own, but we also don't appreciate outsiders digging up old pain. Her voice hardened. 3 families have already buried their daughters. Don't make them relive that grief unless you're absolutely certain there's something to find. Understood, ma'am. Kira left the office, walked down the corridor, didn't look back, but she felt Vaughn's eyes on her the entire way. In her ear, Garrison. She knows. What? She knows you're not just a training evaluator. Maybe not details, but she's suspicious. Kira pushed through the exit door, stepped into the California sun. How can you tell? Because I've been reading people for 40 years, and that wasn't a welcome speech. That was a warning. Kira's jaw tightened. So what do? We move faster. If Vaughn's dirty, she's already covering her tracks. We need to find evidence before she has time to bury it. Where do I start? Gunnery Sergeant Everett Shaw. He's in Building 7, former Force Recon. Served with Rachel Donnelly before she died. According to his file, he requested a formal investigation into her death. Request was denied. Think he'll talk to me? Only one way to find out. Kira changed direction, headed toward Building 7. The gym was in the basement, old school, free weights and pull-up bars and heavy bags that had seen better decades. The smell of sweat and iron and determination. Gunnery Sergeant Everett Shaw was at the bench press, 57 years old, grizzled, missing the pinky finger on his left hand, but still pressing 225 pounds like it was nothing. He didn't look up when Kira approached. Spot? She asked. Don't need one. Everyone needs one eventually. Shaw finished his rep, racked the bar, sat up, looked at her for the first time. His eyes were the color of storm clouds, hard, assessing. The eyes of a man who'd seen combat and come out the other side with scars that didn't show. You're new. Training evaluator. Just arrived this morning. Uh-huh. He picked up a towel, wiped his face. Let me guess. You want to talk about Rachel? Kira's heart rate spiked, kept her face neutral. How did you... Because you're the 3rd evaluator to show up in 6 months. First one lasted 2 days before Vaughn had her transferred. Second one lasted a week before she quit. Shaw stood.
He was shorter than she expected, 5'9", but built like a concrete block. How long you planning to last? As long as it takes. To do what? Find out why 3 women died? He shook his head. You're wasting your time, kid. The system protects itself. Always has. Always will. Maybe, but I'm not the system. Shaw studied her.
Something shifted in his expression. Recognition, maybe? Or respect? You're the one from Morrison, aren't you? The one who took down Thorne and Vale. Kira said nothing. Yeah, thought so. Shaw grabbed his water bottle. Walk with me. They left the gym, walked across the training yard. Shaw moved with a slight limp. Combat injury, Kira guessed. Old wound that never quite healed right. Rachel Donnelly was the best Marine I ever trained, Shaw said. His voice was rough, like gravel being dragged across concrete. Sharpshooter, could hit targets at 800 meters in 40-knot winds. Smart, disciplined. Had a daughter waiting for her back in Virginia. What happened to her? Officially, overdose. They found her in her quarters with an empty bottle of sleeping pills. Shaw's jaw tightened. But Rachel didn't take pills. Had a thing about medication. Wouldn't even take aspirin for headaches. Did you tell anyone? Told everyone. Commanding officer, base psychiatrist, NCIS. Nobody listened. Said grief makes people do things they wouldn't normally do. Said the investigation was closed. He stopped walking, looked at Kira. But 3 weeks before she died, Rachel told me something. Said she'd seen something she wasn't supposed to see. What? She wouldn't say. Just said if anything happened to her, I should look into the midnight shipments. Shipments of what? That's what I asked. She said, stingers. Then she clammed up. Wouldn't talk about it again. Shaw's voice dropped. 2 weeks later, she filed a harassment complaint against her CO. Week after that, she was dead. Kira's mind raced. Stinger missiles. FIM-92. Shoulder-fired surface-to-air weapons. Used to take down helicopters and low-flying aircraft. The kind of weapon that would fetch hundreds of thousands on the black market. Who was her CO? Shaw looked at her, his storm cloud eyes full of something that might have been warning or fear. Colonel Patricia Vaughn. The world seemed to tilt. Garrison's voice in her ear. Jesus Christ. Kira kept her face neutral. You're sure? Rachel showed me the complaint form before she filed it. Said Vaughn had been meeting someone off base, loading crates into trucks with no official record. Rachel thought it was theft, started documenting everything. Where's the documentation now? That's the question, isn't it? Shaw started walking again. Rachel kept a journal, wrote down everything she saw, times, dates, license plate numbers, said she was going to turn it over to the Inspector General. But she never did. She died the night before her appointment. Shaw's hands clenched into fists, and her journal disappeared. Room was cleaned out. Personal effects returned to family, but the journal wasn't with them. So where is it? I don't know, but someone does. He stopped at the edge of the yard, pointed to a building in the distance. You see that? Building 12. Old supply depot. Been closed for 10 years. But sometimes at night, you can see lights, hear trucks. By morning, it's empty again. Kira filed that away. You think Vaughn is using it? I think Vaughn is running something big.
Something that got 3 women killed. And if you're smart, you'll walk away before you become number 4. I can't do that. Why not? Because 11 SEALs died in Fallujah 3 years ago. And I think whoever's running this operation is the same person who sold the intel that got them killed. Shaw stared at her, really looked at her, and Kira saw recognition dawn in his eyes. You were there. You were on that team. I was supposed to be, but you survived. I survived. The words tasted like ash, which means I owe them justice, owe them something that matters. Shaw was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded. There's someone you need to talk to. Specialist Addison Pierce. She works in intelligence. She and Amy Sinclair were friends. He pulled out his phone, typed a message. I'm telling her to find you tonight. She knows things that might help. Why are you helping me? Because Rachel Donnelly saved my life in Ramadi, took a bullet meant for me, and I've spent 6 years trying to figure out how to repay that debt. His storm cloud eyes locked onto hers. Maybe helping you is how I finally do it. He walked away. Kira stood alone in the training yard, felt the weight of 3 dead women pressing down on her shoulders. In her ear, Garrison, "We're close, kid. I can feel it. So can Vaughn. Which means we need to move fast. If she's running weapons, she's got protection, high-level protection, the kind that makes people disappear." Kira thought about Rachel Donnelly, about her daughter waiting in Virginia, about a journal that had vanished like smoke. I'm going to find that journal, sir. How? I don't know yet, but Rachel left it somewhere safe, somewhere she thought no one would look. And if Vaughn finds you first? Kira touched the communications device in her ear, small, almost invisible, her lifeline to the one person who believed in her. Then you better be ready to extract me, Colonel. Always am, Sergeant. Always am. The sun was setting, painting the sky deep crimson, and somewhere in the darkness a specialist named Addison Pierce was preparing to tell secrets that would get her killed. But she didn't know that yet. Neither did Kira. They'd both learn soon enough. At 2,300 hours, there was a knock on Kira's door. Soft, hesitant, the knock of someone who didn't want to be noticed. Kira checked the peephole, saw a woman in her late 20s, dark hair pulled back, eyes darting nervously down the corridor. She opened the door. Specialist Pierce? The woman nodded, slipped inside quickly. Shaw said you were looking into what happened to Amy and Rachel. I am. Good. Addison pulled something from her jacket, a small key. Amy gave me this the night before she died. Said if anything happened to her, I should give it to someone I could trust. Kira took the key. It was brass, old, the kind that opened padlocks on storage units. What does it open? Storage locker, off base, Unit 447. Addison's hands were shaking. Amy kept a journal there. Everything she saw, everyone involved, it's all in there. Why didn't you give this to NCIS? Because I was scared. Addison's voice cracked. Because the last 3 people who tried to expose this ended up dead. Because I have 2 kids and a husband and I can't... She stopped, took a breath. But Shaw says you're different. Says you actually have a chance of stopping this. I'll do my best. Your best might not be enough. Addison moved toward the door. Vaughn has connections.
high-level connections, the kind that make evidence disappear, the kind that make witnesses recant.
The kind that...
Her phone buzzed. She looked at it. Her face went white.
I have to go. Emergency recall. All intelligence personnel to the command center.
What's happening?
I don't know. But it's never good when they call us in at midnight. Addison opened the door, looked back. The storage facility closes at midnight. If you're going, you need to go now. She left. Kira stood in the empty room, stared at the key. In her ear, Garrison. Could be a trap. Could be our only lead. If Vaughn knows Pierce talked to you, then she knows. Doesn't change what I have to do. Silence. Then, I'm tracking your phone. If you're not back in 2 hours, I'm coming in. Roger that, sir. Kira grabbed her jacket, slipped the key into her pocket, headed out into the night. The storage facility was 20 minutes off base. A sprawling complex of orange metal doors and concrete pathways. The kind of place people put things they wanted to forget. Unit 447 was in the back corner.
Away from the lights, away from the cameras. Perfect for hiding secrets. Kira's hand went to the Sig Sauer concealed at her hip as she approached. Old habits, combat instincts that never quite turned off. The padlock clicked open. She rolled up the door. Inside was darkness, the smell of dust and cardboard and time. She pulled out her flashlight, swept the beam across the space. Boxes, old furniture, military gear from a dozen deployments, and in the corner, a small green notebook. Amy Sinclair's journal. Kira picked it up, opened it to the first page. The handwriting was small, precise. The writing of someone who knew this might be the last thing she ever created. March 15th. Couldn't sleep. Went for a walk around 0200. Saw Colonel Vaughn meeting with a civilian near Building 12. They were loading boxes into a truck. No markings on the truck. No record of any scheduled transfers. Kira flipped ahead, scanned entries. March 22nd.
DOS Rachel about the midnight meetings. She said she'd seen them too. Said she'd been documenting for months. Said she was building a case. April 3rd. Rachel is dead. They're calling it suicide. She didn't kill herself. I know she didn't. She was too close to something. They got to her first. April 10th. I'm scared. Started keeping my own records. Taking photos when I can. The meetings happen every 2 weeks. Same time, same place. April 28th. Got a photo of the civilian. Showed it to Shaw. He recognized him. Said his name is Victor Crane. Private contractor. The kind who does work the government can't officially authorize. Kira's blood went cold. Victor Crane. The name from the Morrison investigation. The arms dealer who'd supplied weapons to insurgents in Iraq. The ghost who disappeared before NCIS could arrest him. She kept reading. May 5th. Found out what's in the boxes. Not stingers. Worse. FGM-148. Javelin missiles. Anti-tank. Fire and forget.
Each one worth $200,000 on the black market. They're selling them. Vaughn is selling military hardware to someone outside the chain of command. May 12th. Made an appointment with the IG. Going to tell them everything. Rachel was right.
This has to stop. That was the last entry. Amy Sinclair had drowned during a training exercise the next day. Kira photographed every page, sent them to Garrison's encrypted server. In her ear, got them. Jesus Christ, Kira, Javelin missiles. Do you know what terrorists could do with these? Take down armored vehicles, helicopters. Hell, they could probably hit a low-flying transport plane. And Vaughn's been selling them for how long? According to Amy's notes, at least 6 months, maybe longer. That's dozens of missiles, maybe hundreds. Garrison's voice hardened. We need to move on this, now, tonight. Agreed, but we need to catch them in the act. We need... Her phone buzzed. Text message from an unknown number.
Highway 101. Car accident. White sedan. No survivors.
Kira's heart stopped. What? Garrison's voice sharp. What is it? Addison Pierce. She's dead. How do you... Someone just texted me. Anonymous number. Kira's hands were shaking. They killed her. Vaughn killed her because she talked to me. Kira, listen. She had 2 kids, a husband. She was trying to do the right thing, and they killed her for it. Kira, just like they killed Amy, and Rachel, and Julie. Just like they killed Garrett and 9 other SEALs who never saw it coming. Kira! Garrison's voice cracked like a whip. I need you to breathe, right now. Deep breath. She breathed. Good. Now listen to me. Addison's death is not your fault. You didn't kill her. Vaughn did. And we're going to make sure she pays for it. How? Amy's journal says the meetings happen every 2 weeks. Same time, same place. Building 12, midnight. Garrison paused. What day is it? Kira checked her watch. Wednesday. And Amy's last entry was 2 weeks ago on a Wednesday, which means tonight. They're meeting tonight. Exactly. So here's what we do. You get back to base, stay in your quarters. I'll call Blake. Get a tactical team in position. We catch Vaughn and Crane red-handed. No more dead women, no more leaked intel. We end this. It made sense. It was the smart play, the by-the-book play. But Kira wasn't feeling smart. She was feeling angry. No. What? I said no. I'm not sitting in my quarters while you handle this. Her voice was ice. 4 women are dead because they tried to do the right thing. I'm not letting their deaths be for nothing. Kira, this isn't a solo operation. I'm going to Building 12. I'm going to document everything. And when your tactical team arrives, I'm going to make sure they have enough evidence to bury Vaughn and everyone protecting her. That's suicide. Vaughn has armed guards, professional contractors. You'll be outnumbered and outgunned.
Won't be the first time.
Kid, I'm not your kid. I'm a Navy SEAL, and I've spent 3 years being careful and following orders and watching bad people walk free. She gripped the journal tighter. Not tonight. Tonight I finish this. The line was silent for 10 seconds. Then Garrison's voice, quieter now, almost gentle. You're more stubborn than Garrett ever was. He taught me well. He did. A sigh. Fine. You go to Building 12, but you do not engage. You observe, you record, and the second I give the order to extract, you extract. Clear? Crystal, sir. I swear to God, Ashford, if you get yourself killed, I'm going to dig you up and kill you again. Despite everything, Kira almost smiled. Understood, sir. She left the storage unit, drove back toward Pendleton, but she didn't go to her quarters. She went hunting. Building 12 was exactly where Shaw had said. Old supply depot on the far edge of base, officially decommissioned, officially empty.
But there were tire tracks in the dirt. Fresh. Made within the last few hours. Kira found a position 300 meters out, behind a maintenance shed. Good sight lines, good cover, good escape route if things went wrong. She settled in to wait. At 23:45, headlights appeared. A truck. No markings, no plates, just a dark shape moving through the darkness. It stopped outside Building 12. Two men got out, started unloading crates from the back. Heavy crates, the kind that held weapons. At 2,350, another vehicle. Military SUV. Government plates. Colonel Patricia Vaughn stepped out, and behind her, a man Kira didn't recognize. Tall, gray hair, expensive civilian clothes, the kind of person who didn't belong on a military base at midnight. Victor Crane. Kira's finger found the record button on her phone. Started filming. Vaughn approached Crane. They spoke. Too far away for Kira to hear, but close enough for the camera to capture. Crane opened one of the crates,
Pulled out a missile tube, FGM-148 Javelin, exactly like Amy's journal had described. He nodded, satisfied. Pulled out a briefcase, opened it. Stacks of cash visible even from 300 meters away. Vaughn took the briefcase, checked the contents, smiled. Kira had it all on video. The weapons, the money, the exchange, everything they needed to bury both of them. In her ear, Garrison. I've got FBI inbound, ETA 15 minutes, just hold position. Copy. But then something happened that changed everything. One of the contractors noticed something, pointed toward Kira's position. No, she'd been careful, stayed hidden, made no noise. But somehow they knew. Vaughn pulled out a radio, spoke into it. The contractor started moving, spreading out, searching. Kira, Garrison's voice urgent. They've made you. Abort. Abort now. She should have listened, should have fallen back, let the FBI handle it. Followed orders like a good soldier.
but then she thought about Addison Pierce, dead in a car wreck that wasn't an accident. Thought about Amy Sinclair, drowned in a pool she could have swum across with her eyes closed. Thought about Rachel Donnelly, overdosed on pills she never would have taken. Thought about Garrett Sloan, dead in the sand because someone sold him for $50,000. And Kira Ashford made a choice. She stood up, walked directly into the light, and said 5 words that would change everything. Good evening, Colonel Vaughn. Time slowed. Kira could see every detail with crystalline clarity. The way Vaughn's hand moved toward her sidearm. The way Crane's eyes widened in recognition. The way the 4 contractors pivoted, bringing their weapons to bear. 4 Heckler & Koch MP7s, 40-round magazines, 900 rounds per minute cyclic rate, against 1 Sig Sauer P226, 15 rounds, semi-automatic. The math wasn't good, but math had never been Kira's strong suit. She kept her hands visible, non-threatening, the phone still recording in her left palm. 300 meters behind her, hidden in darkness, was the proof they needed. The journal, the photographs, everything. Vaughn's face went through a rapid sequence of emotions. Shock, recognition, calculation, then something cold and final. Specialist Ashford, what an unpleasant surprise. Ma'am? Kira's voice was steady, calm,
like she was reporting for morning formation instead of staring down 4 automatic weapons. I seemed to have gotten lost, was looking for the admin building. At midnight, 300 meters from your assigned quarters, with a camera phone pointed at a classified meeting. Vaughn's hand rested on her holster. You must think I'm stupid. No, ma'am. I think you're smart. Very smart. Smart enough to run a weapons trafficking operation for 6 months without getting caught. Smart enough to make 3 women disappear when they got too close. Kira paused. Smart enough to know this is over. Crane spoke for the first time. His accent was Eastern European, Russian maybe, or Ukrainian. Who is this child? Navy SEAL, part of the NCIS investigation. Vaughn's jaw tightened. The one who took down Thorne at Morrison. Then she's seen too much. Crane gestured to the contractors. Kill her. Make it look like a training accident. The contractors raised their weapons. In Kira's ear, Garrison's voice. Urgent. Desperate. Kid, get down. Now. I'm coming in hot. But Kira didn't get down. She smiled. Before you do that, there's something you should know. Vaughn's eyes narrowed. What? Everything that just happened? The weapons transfer, the cash payment, your faces, all of it? Kira held up her phone. Recorded, uploaded, encrypted, already in NCIS custody. Crane's face went white. That's impossible. We jammed all cellular signals in a half-mile radius. You jammed commercial signals, not military-grade encrypted satellite uplinks. Kira's smile widened. The kind NCIS uses for deep cover operations. The kind that transmit in real time to secure servers 3 states away. It was a bluff. Mostly. The phone's upload would take another 2 minutes to complete. But they didn't know that. Vaughn's hand moved to her radio. Bravo team, status on the perimeter. Static. Then a voice. Young. Nervous. Ma'am, we've got multiple vehicles approaching from the east gate. Federal plates. Looks like FBI. How many? 15? Maybe 20? They're setting up a cordon. Vaughn's face went from cold to something else entirely. Fear. Real fear. This can't be happening, she whispered. It is happening. Kira lowered her phone, tucked it into her pocket. FBI is here. NCIS is here. And in about 3 minutes, you're going to be in handcuffs explaining to federal prosecutors why you sold Javelin missiles to foreign nationals. Crane was already moving, backing toward his vehicle. I'm not going to prison. Not for this. You don't have a choice. Everyone has a choice. His hand went inside his jacket, came out with a pistol, Beretta 92. Standard issue for private military contractors. He aimed it at Kira's chest. You may have uploaded evidence, but without a witness, it's just footage. Could be doctored, could be staged, could be anything. His finger tightened on the trigger. Dead women don't testify. Kira's hand moved. Not toward her Sig Sauer. That would take too long. 0.7 seconds to clear leather. Another 0.4 to acquire target. Crane would fire before she got off a shot. Instead, she moved laterally. Dove right. Rolled. Crane fired. 3 rounds. Suppressed. The whip crack of 9mm bullets passing through space she'd occupied a heartbeat earlier. Kira came up behind a storage container. Metal. Thick enough to stop handgun rounds. Her Sig was out now. Safety off.
round-chambered.
Behind her, engines roared, FBI vehicles closing fast, spotlight beams cutting through the darkness. One of the contractors opened fire, not at Kira, at the approaching vehicles, trying to buy time for escape. Bad decision. The FBI didn't return fire. They were professionals, knew the rules of engagement, knew the paperwork required for every round expended. But they did deploy spike strips across the access road, and they did bring a helicopter. And they did announce over loudspeakers that this was a federal operation, and anyone who resisted would be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. Crane made a run for his vehicle. Kira stepped out from cover. "Federal agent, drop your weapon!" She wasn't technically a federal agent. SEALs operated under Department of Defense jurisdiction. But Crane didn't know that. He turned, fired, wild, panicked. Kira fired back, once, twice. The first round hit Crane's right shoulder, spun him around. The second hit his right knee,
Dropped him like a puppet with cut strings. Non-lethal, precise, exactly as trained. He screamed, tried to crawl, couldn't. The kneecap was shattered. He wasn't going anywhere. Kira moved toward him, weapon trained, finger on the frame, not the trigger. Not yet. "On your stomach, hands behind your head. Do it now." Crane complied, sobbing, broken. Behind her, Vaughn's voice cut through the chaos. "Stand down! All personnel, stand down!" The contractors hesitated, looked at each other, looked at the FBI cordon, did the math. They dropped their weapons. Smart men. Federal agents poured in, tactical gear, ballistic shields. The overwhelming force of the United States government when it decided someone had crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. Kira stood over Crane, watched him bleed into the California dirt, watched him sob and plead and promise to cooperate if they just got him a medic. She felt nothing. No satisfaction, no triumph, no sense of justice served.
just emptiness. 4 women were still dead. 11 SEALs were still dead. And no amount of arrests would bring them back. A hand touched her shoulder. She spun, SIG coming up. Commander Blake stood there, hands raised, non-threatening. "Easy, Sergeant. It's over." Kira lowered her weapon. "Ma'am." "Hell of a night's work." Blake looked at Crane, at Vaughn being led away in handcuffs, at the contractors face down with their hands zip-tied behind their backs. "You got them all." "Not all of them." "What do you mean?" Vaughn's talking already, trying to cut a deal. Blake's expression was grim. "Says she was taking orders. Says someone higher up the chain was running the whole operation. Someone who provided the intel that got your team killed in Fallujah." Kira's grip tightened on her weapon. "Who?" She gave us a name. Rear Admiral Victor Rourke, Deputy Commander of Naval Special Warfare. The world tilted. Kira knew that name. Every SEAL knew that name. Victor Rourke.
59 years old, 37 years of service, 3 Bronze Stars, 2 Silver Stars, Congressional Medal of Honor recipient, a legend, a hero, and according to Vaughn, a traitor. "That's impossible," Kira said. "Admiral Rourke he's the one who approved Garrett Sloan's Fallujah mission. He's the one who had access to the patrol routes. And according to Vaughn, he's the one who's been selling classified information for the past decade." Blake's jaw tightened. He's also the one who trained Colonel Garrison. The words hit like a physical blow. Garrison. The man who'd been watching over her, guiding her. The man who'd promised to help get justice for Garrett.
His mentor was the one who'd killed Garrett. In her ear, Garrison's voice. Quiet. Broken. I heard. Sir, not now, Ashford. Just not now. The line went dead. Blake was still talking. Something about coordinating with FBI. Something about Rourke's last known location.
Something about mounting a joint task force.
Kira wasn't listening. She was thinking about Garrison, about the pain in his voice, about what it meant to discover the man who'd shaped your entire career was everything you'd spent your life fighting against. "Where's Rourke now?" she asked. Blake checked her tablet. "Disappeared from his residence in Virginia 6 hours ago. We've got teams searching, but he's running." "Yes, and he's had 6 hours head start. Could be anywhere by now." 6 hours. Rourke could have driven to another state, caught a flight under a false name, crossed into Canada or Mexico, disappeared into whatever black market network he'd been feeding for a decade. Unless... "No," Kira said slowly. "He's not running. Not far." Blake looked at her. "What makes you say that?" "Because men like Rourke don't just vanish. They have contingency plans, safe houses, places they can hole up while they figure out their next move." Kira's mind raced. "He knows we're looking for him, knows we'll check airports and border crossings, so he's gone to ground, somewhere familiar, somewhere he feels safe. That doesn't narrow it down much. It does if you know where to look." Kira pulled out her phone, opened the encrypted channel. "Colonel Garrison, I need you to think. Where would Rourke go if he was running scared?" Static. Then Garrison's voice, rough, like he'd been shouting or crying. "I don't know." "Yes, you do. You trained with him, served with him. You know how he thinks." "Kid, I don't... Garrett is dead because of him. 4 women are dead because of him. Dozens of soldiers whose intelligence got compromised are dead because of him." Her voice hardened. "So I need you to push past the pain and the betrayal and help me find this son of a bitch. Where would he go?" Silence stretched. 10 seconds. 20. Then Garrison spoke. "Shenandoah Valley, Virginia. There's an old farmhouse his family owned. We used to do survival training there back in the 80s. Off the grid. No utilities. No neighbors for miles." "You're sure?" "Vic used to joke about it. Said if the world ever went to hell, that's where he'd ride it out." A pause. "He's there. I know he is." "Then that's where I'm going." "Negative. You've done your part. Let the FBI handle. The FBI doesn't know him like you do. Don't know how he thinks, how he fights, what he's capable of." Kira looked at Blake. "I need transportation to Virginia. Now." Blake shook her head. "Sergeant, you're exhausted. You've been running on fumes for days. You need to stand down." "I'll stand down when Rourke is in custody." "That's not your call." "Then whose call is it? Because from where I'm standing, I'm the only one who's gotten results." Kira gestured at the chaos around them. "Morrison. Pendleton. I shut down both operations, arrested every conspirator, got you enough evidence to prosecute 100 corruption cases. You also violated protocol, went off book, engaged targets without authorization." Blake's voice softened. "You're a good operator, Kira. Maybe the best I've ever worked with. But you're not invincible. And Rourke isn't some staff sergeant with impulse control issues. He's a career officer with decades of combat experience and resources we can't even guess at. All the more reason to move fast. All the more reason to go in with a full tactical team, proper support, proper backup. By the time we assemble a team, Rourke will be gone. He's had 6 hours already.
How much time do you want to give him? Blake was quiet, considering. Then her radio crackled. Commander Blake, we've got a situation. What kind of situation? Colonel Garrison. He's gone. Left the surveillance van. Took a vehicle from the motor pool. Last GPS ping shows him heading east on Highway 10. East? Toward where? Virginia, ma'am. He's going after Rourke, alone. Blake swore, looked at Kira.
Your mentor's about to do something incredibly stupid. Then I need to stop him. Kira was already moving. Get me a helicopter. Fast transport to Virginia. I can be there in 4 hours. And if Garrison gets there first, then I'm pulling his ass out of whatever mess he creates. She stopped, looked back. Commander, Garrison is the reason I'm still alive. The reason I didn't quit after Fallujah. The reason I learned to channel my anger into something useful. I'm not letting him throw that away because some bastard betrayed him 30 years ago. Blake studied her, then nodded. There's a Blackhawk on standby. I'll have them spin up. But Kira, ma'am, you bring Garrison back alive, and you bring yourself back alive. Because I'm getting too old for writing condolence letters. Yes, ma'am. 30 minutes later, Kira was airborne. The helicopter cut through the darkness, following Highway 10 east, chasing a man who'd spent 61 years learning to be a ghost.
She tried Garrison's phone. No answer. Tried the encrypted channel. Nothing. He'd gone dark. The pilot's voice crackled over the headset. ETA to Shenandoah Valley, 90 minutes. You want me to call ahead? Get local PD to intercept? Negative. This needs to be quiet. Your funeral, Sergeant. Maybe it was. Kira leaned back, closed her eyes, tried to rest. But all she could see was Garrett, smiling at her before that last patrol, promising he'd be back by sunrise. All she could hear was the sound of the radio, the panicked voices, the confirmation that everyone was dead. All she could feel was the weight of 3 years pressing down. 3 years of guilt and rage and a desperate need to make someone pay. And now she was flying into the mountains to stop the one man who understood that need better than anyone. She opened her eyes, looked out at the darkness below. Somewhere down there, Garrison was racing toward a confrontation he might not survive. Somewhere down there, Rourke was waiting. Armed, dangerous, a cornered animal with nothing left to lose. And somewhere between them, Kira Ashford would have to decide whether justice was worth dying for. The helicopter began its descent 90 minutes later. They landed in a clearing 2 miles from the farmhouse, close enough to move fast, far enough to avoid detection. The pilot cut the engines. You sure about this, Sergeant? Place gives me the creeps. Kira checked her gear. Sig Sauer, 2 spare magazines, K-bar knife, flashlight. Communications device that was useless because Garrison had gone dark. I'm sure. Want me to wait? No. Get back to base. If I'm not out in 3 hours, send the cavalry. Roger that. Good hunting. The helicopter lifted off. Kira watched it disappear into the darkness. Then she started walking. The farmhouse was exactly where Garrison said it would be. Old, weathered, the kind of place that had seen better decades and worse storms. No lights, no vehicles visible, but fresh tire tracks in the mud. Recent, within the last hour. Someone was here. Kira circled the perimeter, counted 6 potential entry points, 4 windows, front door, back door, all of them compromised. Any one of them could be watched. She needed a different approach.
The barn was 50 meters from the main house. Closer inspection revealed a loft with a clear sightline to the front door. Perfect overwatch position. She climbed. The loft smelled of old hay and mouse droppings and thyme. But it had good cover, good concealment, good fields of fire. She settled in to wait. 30 minutes passed. Nothing. 60 minutes. Still nothing. At 90 minutes, the front door opened. A figure emerged, tall, moving with the careful efficiency of someone expecting trouble. Garrison. He crossed to the barn, climbed the ladder, found Kira in the darkness. "Figured you'd show up," he said. "Figured you'd do something stupid."
Stupid would be letting that son of a bitch get away.
Garrison sat down beside her. The old man looked 10 years older in the moonlight, tired, like the weight of 30 years had finally caught up. "How'd you find me?" "You told me where work would go. Wasn't hard to guess you'd come here." "Smart kid. Smart mentor." They sat in silence, watching the farmhouse. "He's in there," Garrison said finally. "Saw him through the window about an hour ago, pacing, probably trying to figure out his next move." "We should call it in, get FBI out here." "No. Sir, I said no." Garrison's voice was steel. "Vic Rourke was my commanding officer, my mentor, my friend. I introduced him to half the operators in SEAL Team 6, vouched for him, trusted him with my life." His hands clenched into fists. "And he's been selling us out for years, selling patrol routes, selling target packages, selling the lives of men I trained. That's why we need to do this right. Arrest him.
Put him on trial. Make sure everyone knows what he did." "You think he'll let himself get arrested? You think he'll face trial?" Garrison shook his head. "Vic's too smart for that. He's got contingency plans, escape routes, money stashed in offshore accounts. The second FBI shows up, he'll disappear, and we'll never see him again." "So what's your plan? Storm the place? Shoot him? Become exactly the kind of person he is?" "Maybe." Garrison looked at her, his gray eyes haunted. "Or maybe I just want to look him in the eye and ask why. Why he betrayed everyone who ever trusted him. Why he sold Garrett Sloan for $50,000. Why he thought his retirement fund was worth more than human lives." Kira understood. God help her, she understood completely. If we go in there, he'll be armed, expecting trouble. It could go bad very fast. "I know. We could both die." "I know that too." Garrison stood. "But I'm going in anyway. You can come with me. Or you can stay here and call the FBI after it's done. Your choice." He started toward the ladder. Kira grabbed his arm. "Wait, kid. I'm not your kid. I'm a Navy SEAL, and I've spent 3 years wanting to kill the person responsible for Garrett's death." Her grip tightened. But Garrett wouldn't want that. He'd want justice, real justice, the kind that comes from courts and juries and consequences. Garrett's dead. So is Amy Sinclair, and Rachel Donnelly, and Julie Brennan, and Addison Pierce. Kira's voice broke. "And if we go in there guns blazing, we're spitting on their graves. We're saying their deaths don't matter enough to do this right." Garrison stared at her. Something shifted in his expression, the rage bleeding away, replaced by something that might have been regret. "You're right," he said quietly. "God damn it, you're right." "So we call it in?" "So we call it in." He pulled out his phone, stared at it for a long moment. "But I need to talk to him first. One conversation. 5 minutes. Then FB, I can have him." "Sir, I trained that man, Kira, believed in him, modeled my entire career after his example." His voice cracked. "I need to know why. Need to hear it from his own mouth. Can you understand that?" She could, more than he knew. 5 minutes, she said. Then we make the call. Deal. They approached the farmhouse together, Garrison in front, Kira 3 steps behind, weapons drawn, safeties off. The door was unlocked. Inside, the farmhouse was exactly what Kira expected. Old furniture, dust everywhere, the smell of neglect and abandonment. And in the center of the main room, sitting in a wooden chair like he'd been expecting them, was Rear Admiral Victor Rourke, 59 years old, still in uniform, still wearing the eagles and stars that marked him as one of the highest-ranking officers in naval special warfare. He looked at Garrison, smiled sadly. "Hello, Wade."
Vic, you found me faster than I expected. Shouldn't be surprised. I trained you to track. Track well. Garrison's weapon stayed trained on Rourke's chest, center mass, the way he'd been taught. Why? That's a complicated question. Try me. Rourke leaned back, casual, like they were discussing football instead of treason. Do you know what a rear admiral makes, Wade? Base pay, before taxes. I don't care. $190,000 a year. Sounds like a lot, until you realize I've spent 37 years putting my life on the line for that salary. 37 years of deployments and combat and watching good men die. And at the end of it, a pension that barely covers medical bills. So you sold out. I adapted. Rourke's voice hardened. The game changed, Wade. Used to be we fought for flag and country. Now we fight for oil companies and defense contractors. Men die so CEOs can buy third vacation homes. You think I'm the villain? I'm just playing by the rules they wrote. You sold Garrett Sloan's patrol route for $50,000. I sold intelligence that was going to be compromised anyway. Target was already burned. Insurgents already knew about the patrol. He shrugged, monetized the inevitable. Kira stepped forward. Her weapon came up, aimed at Rourke's head. Garrett had a family, a future, dreams that extended beyond your bank account. Her finger moved to the trigger. Give me one reason I shouldn't end you right now. Rourke looked at her, really looked at her, and something like recognition flickered in his eyes. You're the girl, the one who survived, the one you tried to kill. No, Rourke shook his head. You were never supposed to be on that patrol. Someone reported your injury to me the day before, took you off the target list. Kira's world tilted. What? The deal was for 11 targets, patrol leader plus 10 operators. When you got injured, the number dropped to 10. I updated the intelligence before selling it. He looked at Garrison. Someone made sure she'd survive. Someone who knew what would happen. The implication hung in the air like poison gas. Kira turned, looked at Garrison. His face had gone white. Vic, no, don't. You reported her injury, didn't you, Wade? Made sure it was in the official record. Made sure I'd see it. Rourke's smile was cruel. You saved her life by keeping her off that patrol. Garrison's weapon lowered. His hands shook. I didn't know, Garrison whispered. I swear to God, I didn't know what you were planning. Didn't you? Rourke leaned forward. You knew I was running operations, knew I had sources, knew I moved information, and you reported Kira's injury anyway. So tell me, old friend, did you save her, or did you choose her life over theirs? I was trying to protect her. She was 19 years old, and my nephew Tommy was 22. Rourke's voice went cold. Tommy Garrison, your brother's kid. Fresh out of BUD/S. His first deployment. You got him into the SEALs, remember? Garrison's face crumbled. Tommy was on that patrol? When Kira's spot opened up, I needed an 11th name, so I added your nephew.
Rourke's eyes glittered. You saved Kira, and I made sure Tommy Garrison paid the price. Kira felt like she was falling, like the ground had opened beneath her feet and nothing would ever be solid again. Garrison had saved her, and his own nephew had died because of it. Kira, Garrison said, his voice broken. I didn't know. You have to believe me. Did you report my injury? Yes, but did you know Rourke was selling intelligence? I suspected, but I never thought he'd. Did you choose to keep me safe, even if it meant someone else took my place? Garrison's silence was answer enough. Kira's weapon swung toward him. You son of a bitch. Kid, please. Don't call me kid. Don't ever call me that again. Tears burned in her eyes.
Garrett was your student, your operator. Tommy was your nephew. You trained them both, and you let them die. I was trying to protect you. I didn't need protection. I needed to do my job, to be with my team, to die with them if that's what fate decided. Her voice cracked. But you took that choice away, and 11 men paid the price, including your own blood. Rourke laughed, soft, bitter. See, Wade, this is why secrets are poison. They corrode everything they touch. You spent 3 years lying to yourself, pretending you didn't know, pretending you weren't complicit. He stood slowly, but deep down, you always knew. Knew that saving one life meant sacrificing others. Knew that the girl you mentored survived because men you trained, including your own nephew, died. Garrison lunged, crossed the distance in 2 strides. His fist crashed into Rourke's jaw. The Admiral staggered back, hit the wall. Garrison hit him again and again.
30 years of rage and betrayal and guilt pouring out in waves of violence.
Stop! Kira's voice cut through the chaos. Stop it now!
Garrison froze, his fist raised for another blow, blood on his knuckles, tears streaming down his face. He deserves it, Garrison said. He deserves worse. Maybe, but we're not executioners. Kira lowered her weapon. We're soldiers, and soldiers follow the law. The law? Garrison laughed. It sounded like breaking glass. The law let him operate for a decade, let him sell out dozens of operations, let him kill our people, including my nephew. You think the law is going to deliver justice? I think it's all we have. Kira pulled out her phone, started dialing. Commander Blake, I need FBI at coordinates. She rattled off the location. 2 suspects in custody, 1 injured. Send medical. She hung up. Garrison stared at her. You're really calling them in? Yes. After everything he's done, everything I've done? Yes. Kira met his eyes. Because Garrett taught me something. He said the difference between a soldier and a vigilante is accountability. We don't get to decide who lives and dies. We just do our jobs and trust the system to handle the rest. The system is broken. Then we fix it. But we don't break it more. She gestured to Rourke, slumped against the wall, blood running from his split lip. He'll face trial. He'll go to prison. And every day for the rest of his life, he'll wake up knowing that everyone he betrayed is watching him rot. Garrison was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded. You're a better person than I am. No, I'm just someone who learned from a flawed mentor. She paused. Even flawed mentors can teach important lessons. Sirens in the distance, growing louder. The FBI arrived 6 minutes later. Tactical team, medical unit, enough personnel to invade a small country. They took Rourke into custody, read him his rights, loaded him into an armored vehicle. He looked at Kira as they led him away.
You know this doesn't end, right? I'm just one piece, one small piece. The network is bigger than you can imagine, and they're not going to let this go. Let them come. Brave words, but you're 20 years old. You can't fight a war by yourself. I'm not by myself. She looked at Garrison, at the FBI agents, at Commander Blake emerging from one of the vehicles. I've got backup. Rourke smiled. We'll see. They drove him away. Blake approached, looked at Kira, at Garrison, at the blood on the floor. I want a full report, every detail, every decision. Her voice softened. But first, I want you both to get checked by medical. Then you're going to sleep for 12 hours. Then we'll debrief. Ma'am, I can... That's an order, Sergeant. You've done enough. More than enough. Blake put a hand on her shoulder. Vaughn's talking. Rourke's in custody. We've dismantled a trafficking network that's been operational for a decade.
You've given us enough evidence to prosecute 100 cases. She paused. But you look like hell, and I need you functional for what comes next. What comes next? Trials, testimonies, congressional hearings. This is going to be the biggest military corruption scandal since Tailhook. Every news outlet in the country is going to want interviews. Every politician is going to want to use this for their agenda. Blake's expression was grim. You stopped the bleeding, Kira, but now comes the hard part, making sure it meant something. Kira looked at the farmhouse, at the place where 30 years of betrayal had finally caught up with its architect. It meant something, she said quietly. It meant Garrett and the others didn't die for nothing. It meant 3 women who tried to do the right thing finally got justice. It meant the system worked. Eventually. Eventually, Blake nodded. Come on, let's get you home. Home. Kira wasn't sure where that was anymore. Not Iraq, not Camp Morrison, not the quarters at Pendleton. Maybe home was wherever the next mission took her, wherever the next fight needed fighting, wherever the next person needed help. She looked at Garrison. He met her eyes, and something passed between them. Understanding. The acknowledgement that they'd both made mistakes, and both had to live with them. Come on, old man, she said. Blake says we need sleep. I'm not that old. You're 61, and you just punched out a rear admiral. You're old. Despite everything, Garrison almost smiled. Fair point. They walked to the waiting vehicles together. The sun was rising, painting the Virginia mountains crimson and gold. The colors of dawn. The colors of new beginnings. 3 months later, Kira found Garrison at the memorial wall on a cold November morning. He stood before the names carved in stone, 11 of them, including one that made his hands shake. Petty Officer Second Class, Thomas J. Garrison. I've been coming here every day, he said, without turning, trying to figure out what to say to him, to all of them. Kira stood beside him. You don't have to say anything. Don't I? His voice cracked. I saved your life, cost 11 others, including my own nephew. That's not something you just move past. No, it's something you carry. She touched Garrett's name. But Garrett wouldn't want you destroyed by it. Tommy wouldn't either. They'd want you to make it mean something. How? The training center, teaching the next generation, making sure no one else has to choose between protecting one person and sacrificing 10. Garrison looked at her. You've forgiven me? I'm trying to. Her voice was honest, raw. Some days I hate you. Some days I understand. Most days I'm just Tired of being angry. He nodded slowly. That's more than I deserve. Maybe, but it's what I'm giving you anyway. She turned to face him.
Because you taught me something, Colonel. You taught me that good people can make terrible choices, and terrible choices don't erase the good. Garrett taught you that, not me. Garrett taught me how to fight. You taught me how to survive what comes after. She held out her hand. So are we going to build this center? Or are you going to stand here feeling sorry for yourself until you're 80? Despite everything, Garrison almost smiled. He took her hand. Let's build something that lasts. Deal. 6 months after Rourke's sentencing, the Garrison Sloan Training Center opened on a cold morning in November. Virginia. 20 acres of training facilities and classrooms and barracks, named after two men who'd believed in something bigger than themselves, who'd made mistakes but tried to make them right. Garrison stood at the ribbon cutting, 61 years old, retired now, but still standing straight, still believing that the next generation could be better than his.
Kira stood beside him. 20 years old, lieutenant now, promoted for valor, for service, for results. 50 women filled the courtyard, the first class, ages 18 to 30. Different backgrounds, different stories, but all of them here for the same reason: to prove that strength came in all sizes, that courage came in all forms, that the future belonged to anyone brave enough to fight for it. Kira addressed them, her voice carrying across the cold morning air. When I started this journey, I was 19 years old, small, inexperienced, convinced I had to prove myself every single day, convinced that people would never see past my size, past my age, past my gender. She paused, looked at Garrison. A man I respected told me something. He said the difference between a good operator and a great one isn't physical strength. It's not speed or size or how much you can bench press. It's whether you quit when things get hard, whether you stand up when it would be easier to stay down, whether you keep going when everyone says you can't. She looked back at the 50 faces watching her. Some of you are here because you were told you're too small, too weak, too whatever. Some of you are here because you watched someone you loved get hurt and you couldn't stop it. Some of you are here because you're angry at a world that doesn't seem fair. She stepped forward. Good. Use that. Channel it. Let it fuel you through the hard days and the impossible challenges and the moments when you want to quit more than you want to breathe. But remember something. You're not just fighting for yourselves. You're fighting for everyone who comes after you. Every woman who's been told she can't. Every person who's been underestimated. Every voice that's been silenced. She raised her voice. This center is named after two men who believed in something bigger than themselves, who made mistakes but tried to make them right, who understood that the greatest legacy you can leave is the people you train, the lives you change, the difference you make. She looked at Garrison one more time. He nodded. Welcome to Garrison Sloan. Your transformation starts now. The 50 women stood at attention, ready, determined. And in that moment, Kira saw the future, Saw a generation of warriors who would be stronger because she'd shown them how, who would fight smarter because she'd taught them, who would never quit because she'd proved it was possible. Behind the recruits, other faces watched with pride. Commander Sarah Blake, now Deputy Director of NCIS, had taken early retirement to serve on the Center's advisory board. Gunnery Sergeant Everett Shaw taught hand-to-hand combat 3 days a week, finally repaying the debt he owed to Rachel Donnelly. And in a federal prison 200 miles away, Victor Rourke stared at the ceiling of his cell, counting the days. His brother, Richard, the one nobody knew about, had sent word. Questions would be asked, debts would be collected. But that was a problem for another day. A hand touched Kira's arm. She turned. A young woman stood there, 19 years old, blonde, small, nervous eyes that reminded Kira of herself 3 years ago. "Lieutenant Ashford? I'm Private Harper Reed." "Welcome, Private. I just wanted to say, my grandfather served in Gulf War. He told me about you, about what you did, about how you proved that heart beats height." Harper's eyes were bright. "He told me to find someone like you, learn from them, become them." Kira looked at this girl, this young woman who was standing at the beginning of a journey that would break her down and build her back up and turn her into something she couldn't yet imagine. "Your grandfather was right," Kira said. "Heart is what matters. And if you've got heart, I'll teach you everything I know."
Everything?
Everything. How to fight, how to survive, how to keep going when the world says quit. She paused. And most importantly, how to be better than the people who came before you. How to learn from their mistakes. How to build something that lasts. Harper nodded, saluted. Kira returned it. And as she watched Private Harper Reed walk away toward her first training session, she felt something she hadn't felt in 3 years. Peace. Not the peace of finished business, not the peace of revenge satisfied. The peace of purpose fulfilled, of legacy established, of knowing that the fight would continue long after she was gone, because she'd trained others to carry it forward. Garrison walked over, stood beside her, watched the new recruits forming up. "You did good." "We did good." "Yeah," he smiled. "Yeah, we did." They stood in silence, watching the future unfold. And somewhere, Kira imagined, Garrett was watching too, proud of what she'd become, proud of what she'd built. She touched the pendant around her neck, the one she'd worn since Iraq, the one that held a picture of 11 faces. "This is for you," she whispered. "All of you. Every person who didn't make it home. Every person who tried to do right and paid for it. This is your legacy. And I promise I won't let it die." The wind picked up, cold, sharp, carrying the smell of winter and change and possibility. Kira Ashford turned away from the memorial, turned toward the future, and started walking. Behind her, Garrison followed. In front of her, 50 women waited to be transformed. Around her, the Garrison Sloan Training Center hummed with purpose and promise. And somewhere in the distance, too far to see but close enough to feel, another mission was already forming. Another fight that needed fighting. Another person who needed help. But that was tomorrow's problem. Today, Kira Ashford was home. And home was wherever warriors gathered to become something more.